So today I decided to do something a little bit different. It will be a little more off the cuffs and improvisations, so expect me to stutter a little bit. A few weeks ago, Octopath Traveler 2 announced its release date with the first showing of the trailer in the Nintendo Direct. And after seeing it and some of the other trailer and the footage show at the TGS, I decided to make a breakdown of the trailer and go over some of the things that we saw. So let's do it. So first thing, we can already see that this is a big city. And something that the developers were talking about in the TGS show was that the cities are in this game are bigger and more developed than the first one. In the first game, a lot of the cities were more medieval and more ancient, while now the developers were talking about how this world is much more modern than the previous one. Also here, another thing is that now before you couldn't walk on rivers or any body of water, but we can now see that they showed this in the TGS footage is that whenever you walk into the water, you automatically get on the boats. So, and another thing here is Oshatet, the new huntress, has two animals, and we will see this back and forth between the trailers. She goes between the owl and the fox. Also, now this is a little bit of speculation of mine, but this is probably Partitio's for initial city. We will see this again in some later parts of the trailer, but this industrial city, it seems to be Partitio's initial city.
Introducing.
So when this first image showed in the trailer, I thought that maybe this was a boss battle. But in later parts, I think this is just a cutscene. This is just a monster that we'll see early in the game, and that will be it. That will not be a boss. But I will talk about this later in the trailer. Also, notice that the fox is showing up. I'm not sure exactly what is the mechanic behind Oshade, if you can choose which animal is out and which animal is in, but it's pretty clear that Oshade has two animals instead of one that Honeyty uses.
Brand new game in the Octopath.
Also, let's go back a little bit. On this part, Temenos, the cleric, it showed a little bit more in the other trailers that maybe we'll go over depending on how long this goes. But he's somehow able to. We see in the footage that these flames that show up, they take shapes of, I'm guessing these flames are getting the souls of dead people and animals. But they never went over they never showed much of Temenos, so we can't really tell what's going on, what's his ability in regards to these. Also, this from the setting, we know that this is from Hikari's starting area, just from the Asian aesthetics, but we can't tell much from it.
Series.
This is also shown in the TGS trailer that they show, but this boat, you can actually control it. There's even spots on the sea that they show in the other trailer that you can actually see chests in the sea. So I wonder if you'll be able to go to the sea at any time, or if you have to embark on the ship somewhere. This one is interesting because early on I thought that this was Particio before, the guy with the hat. button here. But from the TGS footage and the other trailers they show, Particio is actually this kid over here. The guy with the hat is actually some sort of a mentor or something like that to Particio. Notice that he also uses the same hat.
8 new travel.
Also, let's go back a little bit on this. We can tell that the characters are a little more spread apart, and also they are not necessarily in the characters. Their names still form the Octopath anagram, but they aren't organized in the same way anymore. So they are not really following a specific order. So they do not form the way that they are displaced in the map. Do not form the Octopath anagram anymore.
Travelers embark on a journey.
Also, something that I noticed, but we'll talk about in the later trailer. But now there is a day-night cycle, and you can tell by the lighting in some shots that they show the transition between the day and night. And here, I think this is one of the shots that is showing that. Also, we can see from other areas, from other shots in the trailer, that this rocky area is probably Temenos' starting area.
Through the land.
Also, the forest, something that I failed to mention before, but the forest from the footage showing the other trailer, the forest is Agnes' starting area. So she will be the one that you start with in the forest. Also, there's two forests. There's the forest, the more standard forest that will be Agnes' area, and there's this more jungle-like area, which will be Oshat's. Also, Oshat's starting area also has a different tribe of people to which Oshat is part, which is like animal people. In the TGS footage, the translator talked about the race that Oshat is part as the odd ones. But I'm not sure if that will be the official translation when the game releases. It might have been just the translator translating in a weird way, but odd ones.
Yeah. With that, we could realize a world without conflict.
Also, here now we have the shots showing the characters and their motivations. Interesting to notice that some characters have a remix theme of the previous characters.
Without bloodshed.
I'm going to become a star and bring smiles to people's faces.
Also, something else that I noticed is that in some shots you can see in the other trailer you can see a big show house in one of the more industrial in city urban like cities, which I suspect, and this is speculation of mine, that where this place is the final, maybe one of the final areas that the dancer will be one of the more urban ones where she will have to perform.
Just like Mama.
I'm hitting the road. I'll be back once I eliminate that devil called poverty.
Also, something that I really want to mention briefly is two things that we can see here. One is that the shops are now shops. In the previous game, you would just go to the door of the shop, and that would be it. You get your stuff and get out. Now they actually have the shops. Something that the developer is actually mentioning. The developers mention it, which now you can go inside the inns, you can go inside the shops and see it. It's a nice little detail, but I particularly was never bothered by that in the first game. Also, how the hell is Particio going to erase poverty? Like that's fine, but I don't think that that's something that JRPG more simple teams like Octopath tend to be can really do it well. But I'm curious to see how Particio will do that.
The man took everything from me. Shot.
Again, Oswald will be recycling Primrose's theme of revenge.
Die by my hand.
Not again. No.
Also, something that they show in the other trailer, but not here, is that Trone is probably the her starting area being the more fancy one. Her initial area looks a lot like French, like what you'd see in like 1800s France, like with all these like sort of tall houses.
This stench. This stench.
Here we can see here what's starting area of Trone will probably be. Why I think that? It's because this is clearly a cutscene and Trone is alone. There's not a lot of people around. There's not other characters or anything like that, which makes me think that Trone has this area as her starting one. And also, she also has a little bit of a Primrose from what they've shown in the other trailer, where it seems like she's being whipped by some really creepy guy. So Primrose probably has a little. So Trone probably has a little bit of Primrose as well. Again, recycling themes.
Doubt is what I do.
Now we can see like this is clearly Temenos' starting area. We can see that. Also notice that the sprite, the girl sprite close to him, is really similar to Ophelia's sister. I don't think it is, because the developers talked about in the TGS trailer that Solistia, this new land, is not related at all to Ostera. And the way they spoke of it actually make it seem like Solistia and Ostera are completely different like settings in worlds. Like you will not see people. The way they talked about it makes it seem like you will not see any hint of the previous game of characters or anything like that. Also notice that we can see here the Temenos area is a little more rocky, which is why I think that the rocky areas will be the starting area for Temenos.
Leave the hunting to me.
Something that is curious here, because if you go to the other trailer, you can see that in the artwork, Oshadi has both the owl and the fox, but in this one it's only the fox. I'm not sure why they made it like that.
You'll have all the tasty
And
meat.
here again we see that iguana. In the Japanese trailer, she literally calls this guy Iguana-kun. So sure, but from some shots that we'll see later, I don't think this will be a boss. My initial thought was that this big guy, would be a boss, but from what I can tell, I don't think it is.
What you want?
I need to rediscover who I am.
Also, Casti, I'm not sure how it's pronounced, starts on the boat, which makes me think that she will be the one related to getting the boat and traveling through the sea.
Explore a wide.
Or let's go back a little bit. So we'll see you can already see that the fancy stage that we see Agnes talking in the early parts of the trailer, the fact that they cut right from this area, which again reminds me of the French looking area that that I speculate that is in Trone's initial area, makes me think that this big building right in the back, makes me think that will probably be the theater or opera house that Agnes' final, or at least later parts of the game, will be set in. You can see that they transition right into it, which makes me think that this area here is where the stage from Agnes' final area is set.
World set in a
Again, cast this boat, and we can see Partition's approaching it. So I'm not sure if maybe Casti or maybe any character will be able to trigger the boat initially.
Bustling era.
Oh, another thing. In the beginning, I mentioned that the devs commented that that Solistia is much more modern than Orstera, and we can see that with this train right here, and all the more like fancy and bigger buildings that we see around in this new trailer. So the developers talked about how they wanted to make it feel more modern, and you can tell like when the narrator of the trailer talks about the bustling area, they keep mentioning it. They really want to emphasize that Solistia is a much more modern setting than Orstera was. Also, I'm not sure why they put on the shot here with all of them, because in the first Octopath Traveler there was never a shot like that, unless like really towards the ending, if you went to the true ending. But sure,
Each traveler's path action.
that was something new, and honestly, I'm kind of lukewarm on it. Like I understand having different path actions depending on the day and night, but the problem that I think with that is that bribe, for example, in Hikari's case, bribe doesn't seem like a warrior thing. So I don't know. Like I think the idea is good, but I'm still not sure how I feel about which path action will be during the night.
Differs between day and night.
Our Lord knows well the ways of the world.
What will happen when their path
Here, so this was a complaint of the previous game, like that the characters would never interact, which is kind of false and kind of true. Like if you play the game, you know that every single character has interactions for every single chapter of stories, of each character's stories. But they had that weird cut away from the area to go to that black screen of the two characters on a pillar talking, which really took out of the moment and took out of the feeling of both members of the party being there and talking about it. So now that they are doing this where the characters are having intertwining stories, but I don't feel like that was what people were complaining about. I think the complaints were more in the sense that it felt like those characters weren't there. Like if you were doing Honey's story, you were doing Honey's story, and even though she had interactions with everybody, it never felt like they were there. And I don't think making these intertwining stories that the developers talked about will always be in doubles, where you have two characters. In this case of this shot, we can see Particio and Oswald sharing some side quests. I don't think that will alleviate the feeling that they weren't a party. It's nice that they are doing it, but I think they are approaching the problem. They are doing the wrong solution. I think having the interactions happen on their quests would be better, but let's see how it develops.
paths intertwine.
What's that big round?
Let's go.
Also, we can see here that Trone and Temenos also have intertwining stories. So we have Particio and Oswald, Trone and Temenos, and I wonder how many of these will be. Because I doubt that they will do intertwining stories for every single character, for every other pair. I don't think it will be like that. I think you will have a few, maybe 2-3 intertwining stories for each character. But again, this is just a speculation of mine. Also, when I saw this initial shot, I thought it would be the big fancy building. Though, to be fair, looking at it again now, it might be a different one. But it might be just a day-night cycle screwing with me. Also notice that this is not an intertwining story. You can't see anybody else. It's just Agnes.
And what
This shot is also make me wonder if what's going on, because the sprite, unfortunately, since it's turned, I can't tell if it's Oswald or not. So not sure if this is an intertwining story or if it's just a cutscene for Trona's story, and this character that is attacking her, whoever it is, just looks like Oswald.
adventures await them?
Also, we can see that Agnes and Hikari's story intertwines. So, sure.
In this new
I
world,
think I found a
I think this is clearly going to be Casti's first boss fight, because she's alone, and it might be even a nod to Teresa. I forgot the name for a little bit. It might be a nod to Teresa, where she had two bosses in her first area, where it was a fat one and a skinny one. But so in the TGS footage that they show, they do get near this lion. This lion is always sitting here. So, but they refuse to interact with it because of it probably triggers a quest. But this is in the jungle area. This is right in the first city, in Yosheri's starting city, and this lion just sits to the corner of the city.
the eight
Again, this looks like Trona's starting area, and where eventually in the region will be Agnes' story eventually. Notice the fancy lampposts are similar to the ones close to the show house.
travelers,
So when I first saw this area, I thought it was the jungle area, but looking at it again, I think this might be the forest area.
each have their own story to tell.
Also, something that we see that they shown in the TGS footage, it was Hikari's first area, and this guy shows up in the beginning of the chapter. I'm speculating that this will be your first boss. This will be Hikari's first boss.
Where will their journeys lead?
Also, this shot, initially I thought it was just a boss fight, but this one I'm not so sure, because the sprite's big detail like most bosses are, but I see nothing else to really suggest that this is a boss. The amount of vulnerabilities is small and such, so I'm not sure about this guy. But the next ones are probably boss fights, and we'll see in a minute. So another thing here is, let's see if I can get a good shot. You can see that Agnes is having a merchant sub boss. You can tell by the small hat that she has on top of it. But curious, and I haven't been able to tell yet what it is. But this over here, I've seen in the other trailer, this is actually Particio. So, but I'm not sure what sub job he has that makes him wears this top hat. Something that I'm really curious of, because none of the other jobs really hint at having other sort of hat and such. So I'm curious what subclass Partitios is going over here. Also, you can tell that this is Costi that is attacking, but because of the effects, you can't really tell what is her job that she's using. And here we can see this for sure. This big guy over here is for sure a boss, and probably since we can see that Oswald is here, this is probably Oswald's first boss. And you can tell that another thing that I noticed in the other trailers, you can see in the last shot of Hikari that you have in certain parts of the story, you have companions with you. In this case, there is this emerald guy, and given how they both look tattered, I'm going to guess that this is a prison break. And this guy is helping Oswald escape. And this guy, the first boss over here, is probably the main jailer or something like that. So, oh, whoops. So let's forward a little bit. There's another boss coming. Come on, come on. Let's go a little bit faster. Here. This is the only thing that's throwing me off a little bit, because I talked about the guy on the horse being Hikari's first boss. But when you look at this guy is also a big in the tail sprite. So I'm not sure if that guy that with the horse and Hikari's shot will be just an overall villain, and this guy will be the first boss, or if there's something else going on here. But you can clearly tell this is probably a boss fight just from how big in the tail the sprite is, like they usually do for bosses in Octopath. Come on, come on, come on. Also, this is something that we see in the other trailer, but this is a Steam engine, and Partitions is the first time watching it, looking at it, and then we see this is blow up. Early in the trailer, there is a shot of Partition telling everyone to evacuate. I'm suspecting that once this Steam engine blows, everything starts to blow up, and then we have the evacuation shot that we have in the early parts of the trailer. Again, the same scenario, probably Hikari's first area, or at least in Hikari's region. Also, the guy with the armor in the right, he also shows up in Hikari's first chapter. So, whoops. So but he appears in much more out of the way, which makes me think that this guy will be Hikari's main villain. Also, this shot here, this is clearly Agnes' first boss. She's alone. Again, a big detailed sprite that they go for the bosses. Also, you can tell that from the armor that this is clearly some sort of boss. Is not a regular enemy. The regular enemies in the first area of the first chapter of each character usually have 1, maybe 2 shields, so 5. So this guy for sure is Agnes' first boss. In this, I talked early how the iguana might have been Oshadi's first. I'm still not sure how to pronounce Oshadi's or Shat or Chat, but I'm going for Oshadi right now. But again, a big detail sprite, which makes me think that this was a boss. But what's throwing me off is that we had the iguana. At first I thought the iguana was the boss, but when I saw this shot combined with all the other shots that are clearly bosses for the characters, making the fact that Oshad is alone, doesn't have a lot of, her stats are still small, makes me think that this is actually Oshadi's first boss, and that the iguana will be just maybe some tutorial or something like that for Oshadi. Come on, let's go. And again, we have here another shot of them together. Another thing to notice here is that once again we have Diallo, another Diallo companion animal for Shetty. And another thing is that Diallo and the fox are never together. So I'm not sure exactly what is the mechanic in working here. From what I can tell, it's not a day-night thing because there are shots of Diallo out in the day and out in the night. There's in the other trailer there are also shots of the fox out in the day and the night. Doesn't seem to be an area thing because you can see the owl and the fox both in wild areas and like inside cities. So I'm not sure what is the mechanic here. If it's something that the player does, what is going on that makes the owl and the fox switch. I'm going to assume that the player is the one choosing which one's out, but I'm not sure.
Octopath Traveler
And now we
2
have the end of the
launches on
trailer.
Nintendo Switch,
And
February 24th, 2023.
February 24, I think it's a nice day. I would have liked if there was a demo, but I think that's good. That's reasonable. I hope it's good. The first Octopath I 100%ed it, and I overall I really liked it, especially the combat. I think the combat was really good. But I hope, especially for the story perspective, that they fix what was wrong with the previous games. But this was it for me. I was thinking of maybe doing a breakdown of the second trailer that they released, but it was mostly just extended shots of this trailer and explaining a little bit more of the day and night cycles and how they affect the path actions. But I will stop here, and if you like it, leave a comment below, and I'll see you in the next video.